So
Wonderful.
my name is Tim Howard. My position at Vish is CIO, and my background would be, and that's innovation, not invest, so innovation officer. And what I do mostly is interact with our customers, interact with people in the industry to really focus on evolving the product of Vish, where it's going, and things that we need to improve so that we're more suited to your daily needs in the salon and come up with new features. My background in the industry, I'm a hairdresser first and foremost, and started doing hair when I was around 19 years old. And I had a pretty great career. I did a lot of work. First, and like at 23, I opened my first salon foolishly. Was successful despite my lack of experience in the industry. So I had that salon for about 10 years, and then I split with a business partner I had, and then I went and opened one fully on my own, and then had that one for about 10 years where I then sold it in order to go into Vish full time and to help get this project off the ground. I also worked for a major brand. I used to do hair traveling across the United States and Canada, educating hairdressers on various topics, from hair cutting to running better business and developing products and things like that. So I've had a very fortunate and interesting career in the hair business. And now on this side of it, which is technology, saw a need early on for ways that we can make our color business better. I mean, I watched myself in my own salon lose tons of money just through inefficient processes and waste, and set about to get rid of that specifically with the Color Bar. And then that's sort of where we are today. Vish is doing very well. We're gaining ground. We're helping salons every day. So I'm really excited to be here and share some of my history, story, and knowledge with all of you, and also with Patrick. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Patrick?
Absolutely, Tim. My name is Patrick Blickman. I'm the CEO here at Reach AI. Like Tim, I've served in the restaurant and hospitality business early on in my career, always around the small to medium business space. From there, I got into marketing, so working with different companies to better the experience for small business owners, helping them really take advantage of technologies that are otherwise unavailable at that level of business. Throughout the years, kind of grew and worked into a position here where we're creating technology to automate text and email on behalf of the health and beauty sector, really because we had bought a company called Web Openings about 4 years ago that was working with Salon Biz and Mevo at the time, and learned quite a bit about how this sector really needs the help with technology. As Tim mentioned to me one time in our earlier conversations, 20 years ago, you may not even found a point of sale in a salon. And now we're talking about trying to embrace technology. So it's been an interesting journey here at Reach. Obviously, when you're thinking about automating things fully, there's a lot of learning to be had. But like Tim and Vish, we found that even through the pandemic, we've been able to add a lot of value. We're going to continue to add more features. So the more feedback we get from the market certainly helps our team better understand what your pain points are and how we can help address those by automating things in your business. So very nice to be here and very nice to see everybody this morning.
Great. Okay, so what we're going to do with the topics we're going to cover today is understanding how data can give you critical insights to make important decisions and improve your business. So specifically with Vish, we're going to look at data on color use. So that's one thing that a lot of salons are seeing value with, not just eliminating waste. Using it for various reasons, product charges, but then, there's a lot more data that we're going to dive into that is possible. So how much you're using per application. You're going to get hairdressers in your team that are using far more color than others. And they may be your top producers, but they're not necessarily equally profitable from some of your other service providers. Taking that data and then understanding how it can help your business. And then again, using technology to make improvements to your business. And as Patrick said, it's about automating, because we want to be able to have insight, but not create a lot more work. I mean, there's always work in understanding it, taking the time to read the data, but then just how can technology work for you so that all those tasks that you're used to doing manually have been automated, just to make things not only more seamless, but also consistent throughout your business, which, as we know, if we're trying to implement anything new in business, consistency has to be there, or else it has a hard time making its way into the culture of what you're doing every day. So what we'll do, Patrick, if you're okay, is I'm going to just start asking you, or you telling us a little bit more about Reach. We'll take a bit of a deep dive into what Reach does, and then share that with everyone.
Absolutely, Tim. And when we looked at Reach and how we were coming to market at the time, now this is 2019, we saw that there was a tremendous amount of white space and slow times involved with almost every business that was part of web openings. And so as we created our algorithms for Reach, the goal was to fill that white space and make sure slow times were filled by the best candidates, right? So somebody that's due or overdue for their service, and message them accordingly, giving them an easy experience from that text or email right back into the point of sale. Obviously, the pandemic then came, and we've now seen a shift, right? So now Reach is actually focused a little bit heavier on how do we automate every bit of your communication coming out of your business? Why? Because as we know, staffing has become one of the biggest challenges for many of our businesses. So while white space and slow times and cancellations are still at the forefront of Reach's technology, what Reach wants you to embrace as a business owner is tying together the point of sale that you're using every day. So we're integrated with many of the top providers in the country. And what we want to show is that you can turn it on. It will bring your existing clientele back in a way that's going to be helpful to your business. So you don't need your frontline staff or your front desk focusing on who should I reach out to? How do I get them to come back in? If they do want to adjust their appointment, what does that look like? So again, Reach is here to fill that book. It does it automatically by reading your online booking settings. So there's really no setup or upkeep. All the communication is done through AI. So it knows who's due or overdue. It matches them to their provider and the day and time that they typically prefer. And then it sends out very few messages on your business's behalf. The business then clicks and can book right into your scheduling software. So no change for your staff.
Fantastic. And how do you find, like, does it improve overall for salons the frequency of visits? So I know like pre-booking and all those things are great, but not every hairdresser on your team is going to be good at that, or is going to be as focused as they should be. So do you see with the salons that use Reach that their average the customers return on a more frequent cycle because of using Reach?
That's a great question. So what we typically try and find is, if I come in, I'm a 2-week, my haircut's every 2 weeks, Tim. And if I could come in every 2 weeks on the dot, but unfortunately I get busy and I forget. And by the time I go to book that appointment, it's probably full. My barber's a very busy guy. And so what we're trying to do here at Reach is make sure, even myself, I get a reminder a day or two before, hey, it's Bob, it's your time to come see me. Do you want Wednesday at 2 p.m.? So I stay on my cadence. So making sure people don't fall off that cadence is almost as valuable as making sure they come in more frequently. Another value that Reach has had with a lot of our businesses is making sure clients that have fallen off in a long way, maybe it's 90 days, 100 days past their due date, we bring them back in, right? And we rescue them for the business. And that could be because your staff has turned over and maybe you just lost communication with that client. And so, yes, we are focused on that. Tim, the last thing is we're moving forward in 2022. We're going to be starting to look at how do we increase those ticket averages, right? So when somebody's booked to come in, can we give them some suggestions based on what they've bought or somebody like them has purchased, whether it's product or services, and add those to the text as they're maybe confirming their appointment. So all the above, yes, but we certainly have found with automation, people do come back and they come back more frequently.
That's great. And those tickets, I mean, we focus on that a lot with Vish. And one of the things that we do is really dive down into those add-on services. So it's common, customer comes in and they may have pre-booked to get a half head highlight, but we know frequently that changes once they arrive, right? Because maybe the service menu online, maybe they booked it online, is not clear. They're not quite sure what they want. So they end up coming and getting a longer service, maybe a full head highlight. And then you need a toner or you need a treatment. What ends up happening and what we've seen in the industry is our hairdressers, we know how busy they are. They run tight schedules, and then somebody adds an extra half an hour to the service that wasn't there. But you can't make time, you can't make up that time. So, they just kind of cycle through and make do, and usually, in cases run behind. And what happens when you don't have technology that works for you and you're relying on people to find the time to run over to the front desk when they're already behind schedule or fill out a ticket manually, that they may have missed a service or two. So it's, what Vish is great at is making sure that information goes to the front desk. So not only is the service provider paid for the work that they do, is that the customer is charged accurately. And it's not, charged accurately so you make more money from them. But the problem that exists with the customers is sometimes you remember to charge them, and then sometimes you don't. And in the customer's mind, they don't understand why the bill keeps fluctuating from visit to visit. So we're able to provide that consistency, which ends up having better customer relations and a better retention rate for customers. So as we're talking about technology, we realize how important it is to take advantage of technology so that you stay ahead of your competitors. I wanted to ask everybody out there directly, what some other things are you doing with technology to stay ahead of your competitors? So what are some of the things, and this isn't open, we'll read the questions out as they come in. So I'll just phrase that question again. So I want to ask a question about, and you can write these answers. What are you doing beyond using Vish to stay ahead of your competitors? So what are some of the things you've implemented in your salons? And you can think like maybe we use a recycling program, maybe we use, you're already using Reach. What else is out there that we can share amongst this group that are helping our businesses stay ahead of our competitors? So I'll just wait to see. And Patrick, if there's anything you want to fill in there, by all means.
Yeah, Tim, one thing that you were touching on as people are filling in their questions is the idea that people get busy and forget to fill in for their services or additional time. And coming from my old world, which was hospitality, I ran a lot of bar-based businesses, right? And it was the same problem there. It's your biggest cost center, also revenue driver behind that bar, and bartenders get busy. And what we learned was by automating a lot of the things that came out of those bottles, we were able to make it easier for the staff not to have to do that. So I know I've seen some different data coming across with Vish. What are you guys finding now post-pandemic is your average lift by customers taking on Vish technology? So I can share that with our customers here.
And sorry, and how do you mean the average lift? Are you talking about like the ticket prices?
Yeah, so or savings, right, from lost colors. So either one.
Yeah, so I mean, what we see, I think across the board, what you can expect, and this is one thing that I can, when customers are wondering how much Vish costs and how much are they saving, what we know is across the board, and I think the number is actually 29% on average, but I would say look at your color bill every month. Do the same amount of services you're doing now, but reduce that bill by 25 to 40%. That's a math. Yeah, exactly. So that's an easy calculation to see, how much you would reduce every month. But then we'll look at increasing your tickets or your revenue by 10 to 15% on missed services. So what that means is 10 to 15% of the services you're doing are not being paid for. So they're either being discounted or they're being forgotten about altogether. And then we have a feature that we call product allowances or product charges. And how that works is that from the customers that you have, and the easiest way to think about this, if you've got a large section of your clientele that comes in every 4 or 6 weeks, they're your regular customers, they're not using a ton of color. But then you've got another section of your clientele that comes in frequently because maybe they're not using Reach. Maybe they're just leaving it up to their own devices to book whenever they remember. When they come in, they're probably paying the same amount for that service, but they're using 2 to 3 times more color. So we ensure that that difference in the bill is passed over to the customer so that everything is equal. Because what we tend to do in the industry is raise the price of our service across the board, but it's not really covering the cost. If you raise your highlight price by $10, it may not be covering the cost or the increase from that person who comes in frequently, but it's penalizing your most frequent customers who come every 4 or 6 weeks. They end up footing the bill for everybody else. So, that's just one way that we're able to sort of level the playing field amongst your staff, amongst your services, and amongst your customers so that everything balances out profitability wise. We had somebody comment here that they use Tippy. So that's another great one, right? Another great piece of technology that is really, and Patrick, I don't know what your experience is with, in salons with tipping, but it was a headache for us.
Yeah. It could be a very, tough experience as a client, right? Because you're sitting there at the front desk a lot of the times, you try to figure out what you're going to tip or how you're going to do it. I know in speaking to the founders of Tippy many times, they wanted to solve a problem and make it easy, right? I mean, it's something that we all want to do as clients, and we know that staff live off that revenue, those tips, but making it an easy and non-intrusive experience, both for the client and then for the staff. And I think Tippy's nailed that. I don't know, Tim, what about yourself?
Well, I mean, we had a really hard time. So I've been out of the salon. I haven't owned a salon for about 6 years. And I guess about 8 years ago, I got audited by the government. And the Canadian government at the time, I don't know what it is now, didn't have a hard, fast policy on how you handle tips as a business owner. So the auditor that I got basically said, well, you're responsible. So they went back 6 years because I was just adding it to their checks, the ones that came in through Visa or direct debit. And I wasn't taking out taxes because my accountant said I didn't need to. Well, that cost me about $50,000 because they went back and audited it, and I had to pay not only their portion of the deductions, but also my businesses because they treated it like revenue. So taking something like Tippy that really helps separate that out and also just takes away the work for you, because again, we as salon owners end up paying that transactional fee on the tips that we have no piece of, right? So it's just a sunk cost for the business. Okay, so so let me just see. I just want to know about empty chairs. So what we're doing at Vish, and we need customers in chairs in order to show those gains that we talked about. So that 25 to 40% reduction in inventory. And we take care of all the background stuff as well. So what do you do? And this is a question again for the audience. What are you doing when you have empty chairs? How are you looking through your calendar? How are you looking through your scheduler? What are you doing about those empty seats? And maybe it's just because there's been a lot of cancellations. Maybe you've seen a drop in business because of COVID. How is it that you're tackling that problem? And what are you doing to either promote or just to fill those empty chairs? And this is obviously your expertise. So
yeah, I think every business that we talk to, I'm curious to see what the people respond here in the chat, because there's so many things you can do to try and keep those chairs filled. But my curiosity to your question, Tim, is how are businesses doing this now that, I don't know, in your neck of the woods, I believe there's still some COVID restrictions. Yeah. And then down here, maybe is it going away, but down here by state, it's been different. And so you have these staff that are reliant on keeping their day full. But you have clientele that are spooked or maybe otherwise been exposed to people and therefore have to change and reschedule. It's an interesting time. And I think it's a problem that gets solved by many different solutions.
Yeah, and everybody don't be afraid to ask or to send in your answers there as well. Because I know we're affected in many ways, right? So it's just a lack of customers because people are maybe lost their jobs or they're staying home or they're not returned back to work or they have children that are at home and they can't so they can't come to the salon as frequently. But also we know that our staff has changed and that we have people who don't want to work as much as they used to, which means they're not as available as they used to be. So not necessarily matching up with client times when clients are available. So we have social media posting. So that's a great one. Obviously, having somebody dedicated, but that's also difficult too, because how are we reaching those people on social media? Who is in charge of it? Are the people that are in charge of it, are they savvy? Do they know what they're doing? Do they know how to use the social media properly? So can you just maybe touch on that topic of filling chairs a little bit more and how that automation through Reach can take that work away from the salons themselves?
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. And you touched on something that's near and dear to our hearts over here when you were talking about how Vish can look at each individual client, right? Because a lot of the times when I'm running my businesses outside of Reach, a lot of things I do are based on averages, right? Because that saves time and that's logical. So what I do for a price across the board, or when I have to lift something up, to your point, depending on that client, if it's a frequent client spending a lot of color, in our case, Reach is looking at filling appointment for every client, right? So instead of sending out blast messaging or staying on top of everything every single minute of the day, we're looking at each client and uniquely identifying their specific cadence, their preferences, and trying to match that to open availability. And typically, even if they're going to reschedule or cancel their appointment, we're able to then find that next home for them to come back in. But if you were to ask me my background in marketing and what I used to do for small businesses, it's a full-time responsibility, if not by one person, by many. And I think there's always going to be, technology is imperfect, right? I mean, it's never going to replace 3 or 4 full-time staff. What I will say is that your clients are also expecting technology to be filling in a lot of these gaps. So Reach is focused always on trying to understand better who to message and when, with what message, and to send as few messages as possible. I know as a business owner here, if we get excited and we see a lot of times that we're trying to fill from a business, we'll blast out marketing, right? Not the right answer. You
Right.
don't want to blast your clients. You know your clients are coming back. They probably have a reason they haven't made their regular appointment or pre-booked with you. So maybe that answers your question. But again,
Yeah, no,
everything's about the individual, not the group anymore.
that's great. That's really great. Okay, so we have a couple answers. We have Margaret had said, we have two-part referral cards. One side gives 20% off to the new guest, and the other side gives our current customer $25 off products. So that's great.
Love that.
You know, it's always great to, because you will have people who are motivated by what's in it for them. So being able to give back something like that is a great gift or a great way to market. And John had said hand out 2 or 3 business cards for every client that comes in every time and ask for the referrals for their friends and family. That's excellent. One thing that I used to do, I used to teach a lot. I used to go in and do haircutting workshops for salons. And I would prefer to do live model workshops rather than do a mannequin heads. It's a lot cheaper and it's real world scenario for the hairdressers. But one of the criteria that I had was let's say I was doing a men's education class, is that get your top clients, your top female clients, your top clients, and the ones that their partners don't come into your salon, give them a free haircut so that they are there to attend the workshop. So they're a model for that person, but then they see the detail and the effort that goes into these training courses, and you start to retain all those people. So it also sends out a message to the client base that you spend a lot of time and money on education, which elevates the status of your salon in terms of the skill level for your hairdressers. We also use Pocket Salon, giving guests the ease of scheduling and shopping while they're in their chair. So that's another great.
Pocket Salon's great.
So I think we're just, we're coming close toward the end, but one of the last things I wanted to talk about is how COVID has affected business and how Reach is helping to step in. And not, just what are some of the problems? Obviously, we talked about it earlier about, just staff and having issues with staff and having, a limited clientele, but anything else, any great success stories you can share from some of your clients?
Sure. Well, just going back to what we saw from 19 to 20 in the height of the pandemic, we know most businesses were somewhere between 25 and 40% down year over year, some worse than that, and had to lay off or had to let go or part ways with staff, whether it be the staff choice or because of the financial, responsibility of the business. And so as we've looked here now, we're in 2022, we see the businesses starting to pick up speed and trying to keep up with the demand of clients now coming back to the salon and saying, okay, I'm ready to come back into my full cadence of all services. Yet there may be staff challenges because, to your point, Tim, a lot of staff have changed the way they want to look at working. And so how do we adapt to those? And what Reach, again, has tried to do is really give one more tool to the set that these business owners can use, these staff can use to make their lives easier. So focus on your clients, because right now, client experience is more than ever the most important thing that we're hearing from the market. So clients have the right to choose, and they are choosing convenience, and they're choosing that one-to-one personalized experience in the chair. That being said, I think they're willing and now more understanding of technology and how to make sure that they feel like you're touching them personally with automation. So again, to answer your question, Tim, that's what we've seen. The businesses are starting to come back. The demand is higher than it's ever been. But keeping up with that demand and using what we've all learned through the pandemic when we're stuck in our homes, how do you use technology to be more effective, not necessarily to use it for technology's sake? And I think Vish does a wonderful job doing that as well. What have you guys seen as the pandemic has dissipated?
I just think that's a great point that you make. And the problem with technology sometimes and automation is that it feels automated. And where we're in a high touch environment that we are, we want to make sure the technology that we're using doesn't feel fake or doesn't feel robotic or doesn't feel like it's just this blasted out message. There's no personalization to it. So one of the things that I think we do really well is that customizing the bill for the individual, so that it's that's something that salons I think at first struggle with Vish is, well, how do I explain that to my customer? How do I explain that, the bill is going to be different this time because we didn't do product charges in the past? And that's the best way to go about it, is that we customize the bill based on your needs. Is that, Vish, we have many ways that we can work and set up the configuration so it works to the culture of your business. But one of those ways is just, you say to your, we've got so much product which is included in the cost of the service. So let's say you're getting a balayage. Well, we're including this, 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 and this. But in my consultation, I can see that, what, they haven't been in a while and their roots are a little bit longer, or maybe they've been at the beach and their hair is more porous. Rather than having these flat fees that we charge our customers for an extra bowl of color, we're able to make sure the cost is minimized to the customer so it's not a shock to them. The salon is capturing it 100% of the time and not relying on a hairdresser to remember to charge for an extra bowl or decide to charge for an extra bowl. So again, customization is everything. And technology shouldn't feel like it's removing that, right? It should be automating the processes, but it should be still feel like it's personalized. So I know you do it well, and Tippy does it well, and a lot of other technology companies do it well. But I think that's an important piece of technology, is not to feel too robotic or too artificial. I had a question come in from Christina. She asked, is there any way you can synchronize data from Vish to Forest? So, and we do, and we have quite a few technology partners, just like Reach does, that we integrate with. Part of that integration, and we are developing it, and it's going to get further and further as time goes on. But right now, what happens is when somebody books an appointment in the salon provider, and in this case, Christina, you said Forest. So Vish will take that information from the appointment book, and that will be the customer's name and the service provider that's doing the work, or service providers, and then the services that are getting done. And then what we do is we go through, and we know that changes. We will then push back formula notes into your salon software. And we use our widget, which is a front desk app, which sits over the POS, so that you're able to compare bills. So think of it as a digital ticket or a digital traveler. And while that piece isn't integrated, it is a great side-by-side tool that we use with our salon software. Our eventual goal is that, most things will go back, and it will be a continuous conversation between the two pieces of technology. And Patrick, can you just explain to us how your integrations work?
Sure, absolutely. So again, a similar kind of mindset in that Reach is taking the data from each one of your clients and bringing it in, running an analysis on it to understand the cadence and when somebody's due or overdue. It then looks ahead at your book and says, okay, we know Patrick is not scheduled for an upcoming appointment. And we know that, he goes to see Bob. So Bob has availability on Tuesday afternoon coming up. Patrick typically books on Tuesday afternoon. Let's send Patrick a text message on Monday afternoon to get him to book on Tuesday. And once that appointment is booked, it actually books directly into your Forest, your Mevo, your Salon Biz. And so you're able to log into our dashboard and see kind of at a granular level what Reach has driven. In a future state, we're going to go back to, which we started early days, having our appointments color code within your book so that it's visual right there in front of you. That changed a little bit recently with some of our integrations. We're going to bring that back. But for right now, you'll see that appointment book right away. You'll then see that matching right in the Reach portal. So similar to Vish, you'll just do a side-by-side comparison and see what Reach sent, when it sent it, what the message was, and who booked and for how much.
Right. And then just again, last sort of topic, a couple things that I want to focus on before we finish up here, and we'll open it up if there's any more questions as well. So just to give you a quick little blurb on what we do and what data that we look at at Vish. And again, it's going to matter to the salons differently. Some salons, if they do parts and labor. So what that means is the product charges I talked about earlier is you have so much product that's included in the service, but you also have the opportunity to exclude any product from the service, meaning it's $100 for that service plus whatever color is used in that. And that's how the customer pays. So that's got super value to some customers. A lot of our customers set up that way. Others, kind of have a more hybrid model where we have some product included in it. But what the data that we focus on in Vish is we look at the reway percentage. And for those of you who aren't familiar, reweigh means I've got color left in my bowl. I'm going to weigh it at the very end of the service before I wash it, before I clean that bowl. We're going to calculate how much waste is left. We're going to deduct that from the formula, update the formula in the history so you know what a good starting point is next time. So that through that reweigh alone, we're able to take salons that are wasting, we see salons wasting 40% of their hair color down to some salons under 5%. So huge value, a great tool, a great feature. We also look at cost per service, and we touched on this earlier, is that not everybody's going to be using the same amount of product. So we want to establish what the baseline, and we see a massive range with salons. We see some salons using $15 per service on average. But our benchmark is we know we can get salons to $4 per service. So think about, if you don't have that insight right now, it's worthwhile getting in touch with us, because that's one of the biggest benefits to Salon, is really getting your whole team aligned with how much product is being used per service, saving you thousands and thousands of dollars. So the volume of services we give great insight on. So how many services are you doing by person, by service type? And every type of service that's out there will break down those analytics for you. And again, back to product charges. So if there's anything else, Patrick, is there anything you want to touch on what data salons should be looking at, or, what is a successful salon, and where should their appointment book be? What percentage book should they be before they hire new staff or look at automating it through you? Where are the whole?
Well, yeah. So our sweet spot, our average business is between 4 and 6 chairs. The reason that we look at that as being our sweet spot is we want to make sure you're leveraging your scheduling software in a way that's helpful, meaning you're putting in client data accurately, you're putting in contact information, you're opting your clients into communication. So when we talk about filling the book, obviously everybody's trying to get a high pre-book rate, and we highly recommend focusing your attention there because as clients are pre-booked, we know they're going to come in. We know that that's the most convenient way for them to come in regularly. That being said, things change and people change whether they're going to come in, whether they cancel outright, and Reach is going to be paying attention to all that. So I think what we're always going to be looking at is when you're trying to fill up your employment staff, you want to get to your break-even points of what your business is, right? So you need to look at your costs, look at things like your color. How do you make sure you're making sure your cost of goods sold are as low as they can be, right? So that you can then allocate those resources to hiring staff, to training staff. And so I think from my standpoint, looking at every element of your business and saying, if I'm going to do marketing, for example, touching on Reach, what are my conversion rates? How much time am I having somebody spend sending out communications, looking at the data coming back in? Who's actually responding to it, whether it's product sales or filling of appointments? How much of that money that I'm spending to putting somebody on that job, whether it's yourself included, what does that cost you per hour? And then backtrack that into, can I use another tool, whether it be Tippy for tips or Vish for color or Reach for filling the book? Can I use the money that it costs to do that, right? Is that a better use of my time, and do my conversions line up? And what we're looking at, Tim, is making sure we're beating standard email and text conversions by not having to send a fraction of what a business normally would, because we're sending those to many as an owner, whereas these tools can do it personalized to one. So I know that was a little bit off what your question was, but I think the reality is look at everything you're doing with the data, because that will tell you, is it worth the time and the money you're spending on it based on the return you're getting from those efforts.
That's great. No, that's on point. That is excellent. Christina just had one more question. Do you have the Vish formula usage help with inventory? Suppose through my 4 system. So Christina, I'm not 100% sure what you mean there, but I'd be happy to meet with you. My email is timothy@getvish. So by all means, or just respond to to Sabrina, the one that we sent out for this invite today. And that goes for anybody on the call. If there's something that you're interested in, if there's more information that you would like, go to our website, which is getvish.com, and you can book a demo. My personal email is Timothy, Timothy @getvish, getvish.com. I'd be happy to join a meeting. If any of you are current customers and you want more information on your data, we'd be happy to set some time aside to do that. And then Patrick, do you want to just sort of give how do we reach you? How do we reach?
Yeah, absolutely. How do we reach? My email is my last name, BLICKMAN getreach.ai. I'd be happy to answer any questions or walk you through what we do as well. For anybody that's attending this session or anybody you know, we'd be happy to offer a free month of Reach as well, just to get you to understand how this technology works. As mentioned, we're integrated with many of the scheduling software platforms you're probably all using. So if you'd like to email me or reach out to Tim or Sabrina, I'd be happy to walk you through this myself and make sure that at least you're knowing this tool exists. Thanks,
Excellent.
Sabrina.
All right, excellent. And Sabrina's just passed, yeah, she's passed along our information in the chat there as well. Patrick, as always, it's a pleasure meeting with you. I actually, during this call today, there's a couple things that I've been thinking about, about how we can, alert customers or alert salon owners when their customers are due in terms of hair color fadage. So I would love to pick your brain and so let's set a time to meet after this.
I would love to. It's funny. I was thinking the same thing as you were talking through data. So we'll have to connect, and I'll make sure we do after this.
I'd love to. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks everybody.
Happy Monday.